Nashville.
This is NBC Nightly News with Roger Mudd in Washington and Tom Brokaw in Tel Aviv.
Good evening from Tel Aviv, where the prospects for peace in Beirut seem very promising tonight. The Israeli cabinet now has approved in principle an evacuation plan for the PLO. And the man who worked out that evacuation formula, American diplomat Philip Habib, is in Israel tonight to provide additional information to the Begin government. Here are the main points of the plan. All PLO fighters would leave Beirut, and the United States would assure Israel of their departure. As the first PLO leave, 200 to 300 French members of a peacekeeping force would move into Beirut. After most of the PLO fighters have left, the rest of the peacekeeping force would take up positions. That includes 800 Americans, 400 Italians, and another 500 French. Finally, if the PLO does not go or stops its evacuation, the peacekeeping force is to stand aside, and Israel is free to resume the attack. This peacekeeping plan went before a special session of the Israeli cabinet this morning, and Martin Fletcher has been covering that part of the story.
Ambassador Philip Habib arrived suddenly in Israel tonight and looked as though he had good news. One report from Beirut said he carried a list of countries that would accept PLO fighters. If so, that would overcome Israel's main problem with his plan. Prime Minister Begin's cabinet said a list of countries was a precondition to final agreement, and Israel wants to know how many PLO fighters each country will take, and insists that number adds up to the number of guerrillas Israel believes to be in Beirut. The cabinet spokesman said Israel wanted agreement soon.
I can say that we want it and we hope it will be as soon as possible. I wouldn't put any deadline.
U.S. Ambassador Samuel Lewis saw Begin twice today, clarifying and explaining details of the plan, preparing the way for Habib. If the question of where the PLO will go is being solved, then the next stumbling block is the timing of the arrival of the multinational peacekeeping force. But Israel has already said it's prepared to compromise on this one. Israel has also put forward several other more minor objections to the plan, but Israeli sources say agreement on these should not be difficult. Hopes have been high several times before, only to fade again, but this time agreement could be near. Martin Fletcher, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Shortly after the cabinet meeting broke up, Israeli forces surrounding West Beirut and Israeli warplanes resumed their attacks on positions of the PLO. An Israeli military spokesman said they were responding to fire from the PLO at the time. More on that part of the story now from James Compton in Beirut.
Israeli jets came back in the afternoon and bombed Beirut's suburbs. The jets were expected. Israel is keeping the pressure on to make sure Palestinian forces leave Beirut. Life in a dangerous city. Even as a peace settlement seems near, Israel tightens its blockade of Muslim West Beirut. The city struggles just to burn its growing mountains of rubbish. This is what remains of a hospital that has now been hit hundreds of times. There are still 20 patients here. They live in the basement. The Israeli blockade and the suffering of civilians has angered the foreign community in Beirut. A group of women today tried to march to Israeli lines to protest the lack of food and fuel, to protest civilian casualties. They never got close enough for any Israeli to hear their plea. It was another frustration.
People are just tired. It's gone on for so long and they don't see when there's going to be an end. And they just don't know anymore. They live from day to day to day. It's either a day you get bombed or it's a day you don't get bombed. That's how you divide time.
This morning, snipers were firing on an intersection at the edge of West Beirut. The shots came from the direction of Israeli lines, but they could easily have been Palestinian. This is how one returns from a grocery shopping trip in West Beirut today. James Compton, NBC News, West Beirut.
The Israeli government is convinced that this continuous military pressure has forced the PLO to accept the evacuation plan. And as I was leaving Beirut today, I saw the Israelis setting up for a rocket attack. It appeared that they were preparing to give the PLO some of their own. They were preparing to fire Katyusha rockets, captured from the PLO. Roger?
President Reagan has made no public comment on the Beirut negotiations since his sharp comments and angry looks of a week ago Sunday, but his spokesman have, and clearly the administration is quietly pleased at the progress. Here's Bernard Kalb at the State Department.
The Reagan administration quickly welcomed the Israeli decision, the State Department spokesman saying the U.S. is encouraged by the continuing momentum in the negotiations.
We are cautiously optimistic that the remaining issues with regard to West Beirut can be worked out soon, and that we will be able to move rapidly to implementing the agreement.
That cautious optimism was echoed by a visitor to the White House, the leader of the Israeli political opposition, Shimon Peres.
The president expressed his belief that we are very near solving the Beirut problem peacefully. He feels that, as I do, that there may be an opening for the continuation of a peace momentum in the Middle East.
And Syria's ambassador to Washington reiterated his country's readiness to accept the PLO's leaders and officers.
Altogether, they might reach 1,000, and if they reach 1,000, we accept them. We didn't say we stop at 1,000 or short of 1,000. We said practically, literally, we accept the leadership and the offices.
And a late report by the Syrian government news agency that Syria is also prepared to accept PLO rank-and-file fighters. But despite all the upbeat signals, U.S. officials are pointedly warning that there's always the possibility of things still falling apart. Bernard Kalb, NBC News, the State Department.
And there are now reports that Iraq has offered to take all of the PLO guerrillas and that Tunisia says it will accept the first contingent of the PLO. Tunisia's ambassador to the United States said tonight, "Our doors are open. We hope there is no more talk of Arab unwillingness to accept the PLO."
Tonight's your anniversary.
That it is.
I see you're taking the Buick Skylark.
Indeed.
Very appropriate, rich styling, elegant interior.
Nothing but the best.
The Skylark seems to set a certain tone for the occasion.
Undoubtedly.
I gather that Skylark's economy also has its appeal.
It does, if you'd rather spend your money on better things than gasoline.
Buick Skylark.
Save up to $400 on new 82 Skylarks now during Buick Value Days.
It's Riunite Ice-A-Pair time. Right now, Riunite is twice as nice because it's specially priced.
An Old Spice man always gets a warm welcome wherever he lands. Because Old Spice is the clean, fresh, masculine scent so many women love. So even if you love only one woman, you'll love Old Spice. The men's scent so many women love.
Israeli Prime Minister Begin today condemned the shooting of a number of Jews in a Paris restaurant yesterday. Begin said if the French government cannot protect the Jews, then the Jews will have to protect themselves. More on that story now from Steve Mallory in Paris.
French security forces were making themselves seen in the Jewish neighborhoods of Paris. Police were stationed outside synagogues and businesses. Security at the Israeli embassy was tighter than usual. A few dozen people gathered outside Joe Goldenberg's restaurant, the site of yesterday's killings, and debated the French government's professed concern about protecting French Jews. Two officers watched nearby. Goldenberg's restaurant reopened today. Inside, business was slow, over-the-counter service only. Late this afternoon, a militant Jewish organization ignored a government plea not to stage a demonstration at the Israeli embassy. Speakers denounced the French government, saying it was pro-Arab, and they praised Prime Minister Begin. Several hundred of the demonstrators then marched through police lines and onto the Champs-Élysées, Paris's busiest avenue, to protest yesterday's shooting. They chanted, "PLO murderers." The government believes a rival Palestinian group may be responsible for the incident, not the PLO. The demonstrators shouted insults against France's president, Francois Mitterrand. Police reinforcements were brought in, but they were unusually patient, and after an hour, the demonstrators dispersed without serious incident. Steve Mallory, NBC News, Paris.
Today, 2 of those victims were identified as Americans. Roger?
The House Foreign Affairs Committee voted 22-12 today to repeal sanctions imposed by President Reagan against companies doing business on the Soviet natural gas pipeline. Members of the committee, many of whom have companies in their home districts which are hurting because of the sanctions, paid attention to local political concerns and resisted the strong White House pressure against the vote. The White House had hoped to be more successful today in its efforts on behalf of the $99 billion tax increase. The president spent the day twisting arms and applying his persuasive skills on a continuous stream of influential visitors. John Palmer reports.
They came in waves beginning at 9:30 this morning and continued all day. More than 50 members of Congress, all Republicans, coming to the White House to hear the president argue for his $99 billion tax bill. At one point, reporters were ushered in to hear the president make his pitch.
What we're really talking about is the necessity to reduce the deficits and thus get interest rates to continue coming down to get the economy moving again. And this will do it.
The press office alerted reporters when friendly visitors in favor of the tax bill were leaving the White House.
May I have your attention, please? Senator Roth is now on the driveway in front of the West Lobby. Thank you.
Senator Roth co-authored last year's tax cut and now supports the president's tax increase.
When they begin to understand this tax package, what it contains, that it's not really a tax increase, but tax reform, that you're going to find more and more people will join us.
The other author of last year's tax cut, Congressman Jack Kemp, remains opposed to the tax bill, and his departure went unheralded. Even Chrysler Chairman Lee Iacocca was produced in the driveway, where he offered reporters a new version of his TV sales technique to endorse the president's tax bill.
I think we need action. As I said, if somebody can find a better tax bill, grab it, take it.
John Palmer, NBC News, at the White House.
The nation's governors, half of whom are facing the voters in November, today decided it would not be politically sound either to oppose President Reagan's new federalism or to endorse it. So they did neither. The Reagan plan would transfer social welfare programs to the states, and the governors voted today to endorse a plan of action to study new proposals and effectively delay action until after the elections.
No matter which of these stomach remedies you take for gas, pain, and pressure symptoms, we'll prove Gas X tablets break up painful gas bubbles better and faster. Watch. Intestinal gas bubbles are much like bubbles in beer. Add one of those stomach remedies here, Gas X here. 1 minute later, stomach remedy shows little change, but Gas X breaks the gas bubbles. They're almost gone. For fast relief, get Gas X, the 100% gas reliever.
General Bonaparte, you say an army travels on its stomach?
And its wallet.
Carry lots of cash, huh?
Oh, madness. We carry Bank America traveler's checks.
Bank America traveler's checks?
Bank America, accepted in 160 countries. Sure beats charging all the time.
And if you lose them?
We never lose. Besides, they are refundable in 40,000 places worldwide, in case you get caught short.
Bank America traveler's checks.
The moist dewiness of the island, seen in the ageless skin of its women, is captured in each greaseless drop of the mysterious beauty fluid oil of Olay. As tropical oil and silken emollients harmonize with your skin's own natural fluids, a soft, luminous look emerges, and a coveted secret of timeless beauty becomes yours. Discover the mystery of oil of Olay. It can help you look younger, too.
In Houston today, a man in court on a burglary charge gave authorities information which persuaded them he had committed between 9 and 22 murders of young women in 7 different cities. He said he wants to plea bargain. Barbara Rowan has the story.
Coral Watts, a 28-year-old bus mechanic, led police on a search today for the body of a woman he said he killed. Watts confessed to 9 murders, but police believe he may have been involved in as many as 22 deaths.
Let's get all this dirt over there.
Watts was in court today pleading guilty on an unrelated burglary charge. In exchange for a 60-year prison term and immunity from further prosecution in the murders, Watts agreed to lead detectives to burial spots in several cities: Austin, Galveston, and Houston in Texas, Detroit, Ann Arbor, and Kalamazoo in Michigan, and Windsor, Ontario. District Court Judge Douglas Shaver says it's important to find out the truth.
We know that moms and dads are sitting out there someplace wondering where their missing child is, and every time the phone rings or there's a knock on the door, is the child going to return? Now at least they'll know where their child is.
Prosecution psychiatrists described Watts as a battered child from a broken home with fantasies that all women were evil. Investigators say all the victims were teenagers or women in their 20s and appear to have been selected at random. Barbara Rowan, NBC News, Houston.
Vernon Jordan, former president of the National Urban League, testified today in the trial of Joseph Paul Franklin. Franklin is accused of violating Jordan's civil rights by trying to kill him more than 2 years ago. Roger O'Neill reports from South Bend, Indiana.
The man accused of shooting Vernon Jordan in the back, Joseph Paul Franklin, who now has shoulder-length hair, heard Jordan describe today how it felt to be shot. Jordan appeared to look at Franklin only once in his 30 minutes of testimony. Franklin stared at Jordan when he took the witness stand, but then turned away and never looked at him again. Jordan told the jury how Martha Coleman, a member of the Fort Wayne Urban League, had driven him back to his hotel after having coffee at her home. When he went around the car toward the room, Jordan said, "All of a sudden I felt myself sailing into the air and felt dramatic, sharp pain. At first," he said, "I thought I was dreaming and wanted to go back to sleep." Then he added, "I knew I had been shot." Federal prosecutors charged Franklin was hiding in some tall grass near the hotel, waiting for Jordan with a high-powered hunting rifle. Franklin, an avowed racist, was described as enraged after seeing Jordan and Mrs. Coleman, who is white, together. The prosecutor then asked Jordan, "Did you see the person who shot you?" Jordan, "No, I did not." "Did you hear a shot?" "No." Jordan avoided reporters as he left the courtroom. Federal prosecutors now have to build their case on circumstantial evidence, trying to place Franklin in Fort Wayne at the time of the shooting, his car seen near the hotel, trying to sell a rifle a week later, and hearing from 2 men who claim Franklin boasted about shooting Vernon Jordan. Roger O'Neill, NBC News, South Bend, Indiana.
A federal appeals judge today delayed the execution of convicted murderer Frank Coppola because Virginia's death penalty law has not yet been reviewed by the courts. Lawyers for Virginia will ask Chief Justice Warren Burger to overturn the stay so that the execution can go ahead as scheduled at 11 tonight.
Digel tops plain-add acids. We proved it in recent laboratory tests. Cutting the yellow top off a Digel tablet illustrates the results. Without its top layer, Digel consumes as much heartburn-producing acid as plain-add acids like Rolaids. What's more, Digel has the yellow top and gives you the fast, gas-calming action of simethicone. Conclusion: when you want more than plain relief, Digel tops plain-add acids.
Make it comfortable. Good.
That was comfortable.
I've been giving my daughter tips on driving, and here's another important one. If you drive a car, you need premium performance tires. So I put Bridgestone Superfiller radios on Leslie's car. The hard rubber Superfiller here lets the sidewall flex, so you get a big footprint of rubber for cornering, braking, handling, and comfort too.
They're comfortable, Pop, and they're performers.
That's right. You can feel it when you drive. Bridgestone Superfiller steel belted radios. See the yellow pages for a Bridgestone dealer near you.
You can't let a simple headache interfere with the joy of life, get in the way of your day. The joys of this world belong to the fighters. Let Anacin help you fight headache pain and win. I met with Anacin's research scientists. They told me how, very simply. Anacin helps block pain, just stops it, so you can forget about it. When it comes to pain, be a fighter. You can, with Anacin. Fight headache pain and win.
A National Transportation Safety Board staff report concluded today that flight crew error was the probable cause in the crash of Air Florida Flight 90 last January. Robert Hager reports.
7 months after the snowy day last January when the crash occurred, investigators for the Safety Board met and agreed there were 2 major causes. First, the crew's decision to take off in spite of a 45-minute buildup of snow and ice on the wings and fuselage, inhibiting the plane's ability to lift off. Second, and equally important, the crew's failure to use the onboard engine de-icing system built into all 737s. That caused small pressure valves like these on the fronts of the engines to plug with ice, would have caused inaccurate meter readings in the cockpit, and led the pilots to believe they were taking off faster than they really were. Investigators said the pilots should have decided to abort the takeoff before they were airborne.
It's our belief that the takeoff should have been rejected very early on.
The board also said there's still many questions about de-icing procedures.
The winter season will be upon us again, and I'm not sure we know now, even after Air Florida, any more about de-icing, anti-icing than we knew before.
The board was critical of the Air Florida crew, saying it had only limited winter flying experience, and expressed some worry that 737s generally may tend to pitch nose up when their wings are iced. The Air Florida company tonight issued a statement saying it believed that was the major cause of the crash. Robert Hager, NBC News at the National Transportation Safety Board.
The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office said today Marilyn Monroe's suicide in 1962 is being reinvestigated because of her missing diary and because of allegations that the death certificate signature had been coerced. Here's Heidi Schulman in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles County supervisors called for the new investigation after a flurry of publicity given charges Marilyn Monroe was murdered. A private detective offered $10,000 for her missing diary, claiming it had information about government dealings with gangsters and a plot to kill Fidel Castro. Information he said she got from Robert and John Kennedy.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Gossip linked Monroe romantically to the Kennedy brothers, and a friend who claims he read the diary says she was about to tell all when she died.
That diary, I would say, would contribute greatly to her death.
The detective theorizes someone in the CIA killed Monroe to keep her quiet. That's at odds with the coroner's report, which said she died from an overdose of sleeping pills. But news stories that a coroner's investigator said he was coerced into signing the death certificate prompted supervisors to call for a new probe.
To me, after 20 years, it's time to clear up this case once and for all.
An assistant district attorney is reviewing the information in the case, but he says that 20 years after Marilyn Monroe's death, it is so stale it would take huge resources to uncover anything new. Heidi Schulman, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Henry Fonda's heart condition has gotten worse, and he is back in the hospital in Los Angeles in serious condition. This is the fifth time the 77-year-old actor has been hospitalized in the past year and a half. Doctors are readjusting his heart medicine.
Before you buy a new mattress, you should know the score. There are 432 coils in this Sealy, 405 in this Serta, but you get 990 coils in this Beauty Rest mattress by Simmons. These exclusive Beauty Rest coils work independently to make firm feel comfortable. Look into Beauty Rest. It outscores Sealy or Serta by more than 2 to 1.
There's just no rest like a beauty rest by Simmons.
200 years. That's how long the great American home of John Paul Jones has beaten the weather. To help protect it from any more, Sears brought the Weather Beater. Durability for years to come. Weather Beater flat exterior now $9.99. Save $7. And a special bargain, fashion flat interior, washable one-coat coverage, just $9.99, save $4. For great paint and value, you can count on Sears.
Sue Green is lying.
I can't play another set. My head is aching. I can't tell them I have hemorrhoids.
Honey, try Tronolane. It works better than Preparation H.
Clinical testing proves it. Tronolane does work better. It not only reduces swelling, it relieves pain better, itching better, with a hospital-used medicine Preparation H just doesn't have.
When we play the next set, my headache is better.
Switch to the better relief of Tronolane in cream or suppositories.
Douglas Kiker, moving west along U.S. Route 30, is in Ohio tonight, reporting from Mansfield, one of 100 smaller cities that give Ohio its special character and provide a different angle on America's faith in the future.
From the Ohio State Fair.
Are the good times really over for good?
And with double-digit unemployment in Richland County, well, it's being...
The news from Mansfield is not good. Mansfield, Ohio, population 51,000, unemployment rate 13.5%, way over the national average, with no immediate relief in sight.
This recession has blown everybody's mind apart. They're not counting on anything.
The people here make washers and dryers, stoves and pumps and auto parts. Mansfield is not very big, so the layoffs and the pay cuts in the factories have sent an economic shockwave rumbling through the entire town.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Party in the Park here in Central Park in Mansfield.
But morale is surprisingly high. Nobody in Mansfield is going around singing "Happy Days Are Here Again." This is more akin to wartime morale, when people say, we're all in this together, so let's all pull together and see it through somehow.
If the town is on hard times, the financial community itself is also on hard times. I think the name of the game today is we have to help those customers hang on, because they're going to be here in the future, and that's what we're building on.
I think most of the merchants are doing okay in the downtown.
Breaking even.
Yes, breaking even.
I just hope that I can get by till this thing breaks. 2 years back, it was real good this time of night. Right now, it's slow.
You know, before maybe we really didn't care, but now you see how hard times are, and you're making a bigger effort. And I think things will turn around.
So they are holding on here in Mansfield as best they can, hoping for, waiting for, believing in a better day. Indeed, what other choice do they have?
Ohio now has the third highest unemployment rate of...
The good times ain't over for good.
Douglas Kiker, NBC News, along Route 30 in Mansfield, Ohio.
When things really get bad in Mansfield, they can always look back to those glittering days right after World War II when Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart were married in Mansfield. That's Nightly News for Tuesday. I'm Roger Mudd in Washington.
And I'm Tom Brokaw in Tel Aviv. Good night for all of us at NBC News.
Tomorrow morning on Today, reports from Beirut and Tel Aviv on the situation in Lebanon. Bob Kerr talks to the PLO's new man in Washington about the U.S. plan for ending the conflict. Bryant Gumbel talked to some Lebanese Americans who went to Beirut looking for members of their families. Jane Pauley looks at the war games some adults play and listens to the Wright Brothers, one of Nashville's up-and-coming groups. Ilya Kazan talks about the movie business, and some Italian Americans accuse the media of giving them image problems. That plus the latest overnight news developments tomorrow morning on Today.
You probably think the brightest, freshest new comedy of the season will be on ABC. CBS? The brightest, freshest new comedy of the season is called Cheers, and it's coming to NBC. That's right, NBC. That's right.